Are you familiar with FBI Special Agents Kyle Seraphin?
I'm familiar with the name.
Is that yes?
I'm familiar with the name. Familiar with the name. Familiar with the name.
Let's bring in Kyle Seraphin. He's the FBI whistleblower who helped expose government censorship of our First Amendment rights.
Now, we only have this memo because a recently suspended FBI agent called Kyle Seraphin brought it to the public. And we're grateful that he did. Kyle, thank you so much for joining us tonight.
He's the host of something that strangely is called the Kyle Seraphin Show.
Kyle Seraphin, I can't thank you enough for speaking out. I knew you guys were out there, and I knew it was just a matter of time, but you got a lot of guts putting your face and your name to this. You're doing a service on behalf of the American people, and from the bottom of my cracked and broken heart sometimes, thank you very much.
Take a look behind the curtain with a real whistleblower and American patriot. Prepare to embrace the uncomfortable truth because this program has no time for comforting lies. Here is civil liberties enthusiast, Second Amendment defender, and recovering FBI agent Kyle Seraphin.
Hello, my friends. Welcome to the Kyle Seraphin Show. That's weird. Every once in a while it does that to me. I don't know why. Welcome. All right. Today is Tuesday. It is May the 21st. We are rolling live on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. You guys can see the chat is going. There's probably going to be some confusion. The refresh to black screen. Yeah, so strange. Join us over there if you guys will. Give us the thumbs up on Rumble. Give us a subscribe, a follow, if you will. And if you want to subscribe to the channel, that's the second version of it. You can do that right here on the link, rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. And if you do so, then you can support us with $5 a month. It goes 100% to us. We appreciate all that. And there are well over 100 of you doing that right now. Very cool. I want to go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes of today's show without a ton of talking. We're going to talk to you about fear porn, which I often call amygdala porn. There is a little game that is being played right now on the left-wing media. We saw and we know that they are failing to get the desired results from this trial that's happening in Manhattan. It doesn't look good. It doesn't look like it's going to be the preferred outcome for the CNN types. And so, yeah, we're going to have to push into the next level, which is scare the crap out of you so that you understand that we're right and you're wrong and stop doing what you were doing. Go get your shots. Do what the public health officials tell you, which is to say, obey the government and don't have any faith. We're going to get a lot into that. There's a number of stories that are kind of trending across, and they're all done by these sort of fun, fake, reliable sources. So you guys will get a kick out of all of that. Before we get started, let me say thanks to my friends over at Patriot Coolers. We have mine sitting right here. Look at this. I can hold it on which side? Which side is it? This side. Bam. Now you have the real thing and the mock-up on this side. There you go. I'm always pointing the wrong direction. PatriotCoolers.com. PatriotCoolers.com. Promo code Kyle, Kyle. I've seen a number of you guys are getting some of these, and you're tagging me on social media. I appreciate that. I think it's cool. You can find the stock images for the suspendables by going into Customize My Tumbler if you guys buy any of the coffee cups or the big water tumblers. But I will tell you this. We used our 50 quart. Again, we use it almost every day that we go grocery shopping, which is a couple times a week. But we also used it for my kiddo's birthday party out at the park. And we filled it full of ice on Saturday morning. And yesterday afternoon, I went and grabbed it, and it's still full of ice, which is kind of awesome. It does a great job. It does as well as any of these other rotomolded coolers, except it says Patriot on it. And I think the fit and the finish, what we call it in the gun world, is superior. If you guys are interested in a high-quality outdoor product, check out PatriotCoolers.com. Promo code KYLE. Save yourself 10%, and it's free shipping for any of the big items or anything over $50. They ship from their warehouse in Houston, Texas, so you'll get them nice and fast, which is cool. Let's get right in to this. I wanted to start with a kind of a segue from the previous shows we've done. We've been talking a lot about Harrison Butker. Why is that? What rail did this man touch? And does it have anything to do with the rest of us? I think it does. I think it's a return to sort of traditional values, traditional sensibilities, and kind of a fun story coming out of the Washington Examiner, written by someone called Carrie Gress. And it says, criticize Harrison Butker all you want. Harrison Butker, I'll say it again correctly. Homemaking is back. I think that's true. I think it's true in my own house. I think that my wife, who has a master's degree and spent time in academia and has traveled the world and done all kinds of interesting things and speaks multiple languages, homemaking is the thing that is very appealing to her. And why is that? Why is that happening? And she also wrote a piece that goes back to October of last year. These are both for the Washington Examiner, that says, Is it the beginning of the end of the girl boss era? Again, that's coming from October of 2023. The Butker piece, I think, is salient because it's happening right now. We've got these people that are so upset about this guy saying some simple things. He's just saying the things that would have been the case for all of American history up to about the last 40, 50 years. And so basically in my lifetime, the definition of women has changed dramatically to the point where it now includes men. If you follow what the political left is trying to push. And that's not good for women, it turns out. And maybe that's the whole thing. Harrison Butker was not saying something that should be upsetting regular people. It's like, it's your experience, man. You do whatever you do if it makes sense in your house. In the 80s and the 90s, people would kind of understood. It's like live and let live attitude. But the problem with that is that if you're on the left and you're trying to push the values of the culture over and over, eventually you're going to have to start making other people live as you do. And that's the big difference between what conservatives want to do and what so-called liberals, who are supposed to be interested in freedoms, but are more accurately called progressives, are interested in. They're interested in enforcing progress, whether you like it or not. If we were living in the world of feminism equals whatever women want to do, we're going to celebrate that they are women and that there's an equal value in women raising children in the home and going into the workplace. If that was the place where it stopped, that sort of first wave, second wave feminism, nobody would have a problem with it. But the third wave feminism has resulted in this crazy world where men are standing in women's dressing rooms and women are supposed to defend that. And it's antithetical to the idea because they can't even at this point define what a woman is, as we so famously saw with a Supreme Court justice being confirmed. So if that's the place we're living in, people start realizing they've swung too far over the mark. I liken it to a pendulum because things always kind of shift from right to left. They kind of have a sweet spot. The goal is to hit the brakes when you're in that kind of drop zone, that DZ, over the area where you want to be, which is to say that people have the most amount of freedom, the most amount of liberties, the most amount of fulfillment possible. But now we've gone to the part where we're taking the values out of whatever it is that they've been able to swing. They've gone so far to the crazy left that it doesn't make any sense, and it's actually hurting actual women at the cost of all things men. So third wing, or maybe this is fourth generation or the fourth push of feminism has kind of gotten into internalized misogyny. If you have to celebrate men as women and that men can be the best women there are and that women have to only compete on the same grounds that men do, then we've taken away all the things of what it means to be a female and a male in this culture, which is why he also celebrated masculinity. You notice nobody's like really mad at him for talking about how men need to be men. You didn't hear anybody getting really upset about that. They picked one little piece of a tiny of a speech given to a Catholic university, and then suddenly that's where they all melted down. In any case, I love the speech. I love that it struck up this conversation. Wouldn't it be interesting if a place kicker for the NFL, for an NFL team, was the guy that sort of like forced this moment to crisis? There's always these sort of cathartic pushes where one side or the other kind of triumphs. And I think in this case, he's kind of lit that fire. It was slow burning and he's breathed a lot of flame into it. I love what this woman says in this piece. It's worth your read. If you guys want to go to the Washington Examiner, check it out for yourself. Little pieces from it though. It says, the girl boss is out. She's been replaced with the likes of the soft girl or the trad wife, two of the names in this latest trends. These trends obviously go back a very long ways. And the new monikers reveal that the 1970s feminism is really losing its grip. Women, particularly young women, and this is really why they're so upset about it, because younger women in particular have lost the stomachs for corporate ladder grinds and for sacrificing husband and children for the prerequisite that it's going to take for you to get to the top of a corporate push. If you're going to prioritize family over career, you're probably not going to be able to do it. By the way, that's true for men as well. If you look at the most successful like family men who have done the most have the most time with their kids, it's not going to be the guy that spends long hours. In fact, a little moment from our side, because I'll dish it on either side. There was a post that went on, I want to say it was Twitter yesterday, the day before. It was Vivek Ramaswamy, who I think does a really good job, and he showed that he was out doing a campaign stop and thereby had to miss his son's first T-ball game. And it was a mixed bag, but mostly people said something that I think was the standard in my childhood. All of the movies that showed the overambitious career dad missing the game, it doesn't matter whether it was things like Robin Williams and Hook right? Or I'm trying to think of some of the other ones. There's dozens and dozens of these 80s examples. What was the Turbo Man? That stupid movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger, where they had the Jingle All the Way, right? All these kind of, the trope was the dad spends all the hours in the office and forsakes raising the children, and the children resent it. So the thing was, somebody made this very, very poignant comment on social media. I think it rings true. Said, do you know who's going to remember all those extra hours you put in at the office, all of those nights that you stayed late working on a presentation, all of the moments that you gave up from your family to get work done? Your children. And that's an age-old theory, right? This is cats in the cradle. It's a sad idea that we're going to celebrate this kind of thing. And so in a world where we are trying to get more quote unquote work-life balance, where people are more aware of the value of family, it's inevitable that people are going to also recognize the value of women doing that work. Now, the one thing that my wife pointed out to me that I thought was very interesting, and I think we should probably do a whole segment on it. If you guys can recommend somebody that might be an expert in this field, I would love to have a chat about this and explore it. The historical change during the Industrial Revolution, when we began to outsource things like clothing making and baking and all the sort of industrial processes that we do now, that used to be the world that women filled. Women do need to have some degree of industry, and usually it used to be cottage industry. It was the making of clothes, and it was the actual making of foods and all these things. And that was a concrete, real world value that women could hang their hat on and say, this is the contribution that I have, not the sort of soft skills of like, well, my children are better people and this. That's really hard to measure. So it's kind of important that we do we recognize that all people want to leave a physical mark in the world so that when they are done with the day, they can point back to noted achievements, physical accomplishments that other people also saw. It's hard to say, you did a good job as a dad or you did a good job as a mom. That's like only in your head and your heart and maybe in your kids' hugs. So I do think there is something to that. But the idea that we've lost that cottage industry level and that we should probably, I think we're also going to see a swing back in that. That's why you keep seeing, and I think she mentions this in the piece as well, the idea of knitting and sewing and homesteading and gardening and sourdough starters and interior design, all the things that were always the purview of the home, which was by default women. We're starting to see a swing back and women are putting value back into that. And that means that the left loses. And so when they're losing on the cultural front, and that is a cultural battle, and they're losing in the media front because they're not getting the outcomes they want, then the only thing that we can do is try to scare you into submission. We're going to talk about that right about now. Here we have a piece that comes from CNN. It's an opinion piece. Opinion writers are always the ones that are expressing only their opinions and not of the network that they represent, but it's really the opinion of the network they represent. This is the criminal prosecution of Donald Trump in Manhattan. Opinion is how I changed my mind on the strength of the prosecution's case against Donald Trump. Here's why. And this is written by someone called, what is her name? Stacy Schneider. What's interesting is how gently phrased it is, saying that I don't think that that our preferred outcome is going to come out. And that is pervasive in this particular piece. It's worth seeing that CNN is starting to hedge their bets. The reason why I like saying things that CNN covers, it's my first stop every single day, is because it's also the primary news outlet. I'll put news in scare quotes if you like. It's the primary news outlet for federal law enforcement, specifically the FBI, and almost all federal buildings have it on as a default. So what does that tell us? It tells us where the people that are around the people in power in this country, this is what they are being informed by. So whether it be from CNN.com or whether it be from their actual news program, it's very worth noting that this makes a big difference inside the Beltway. Even though they have far less viewership than Fox News, they shape opinions of those that are in the federal government. And that's why I think it's so important to know what they're about. All right, so this article starts out, the Manhattan District Attorney's Office made a significant tactical error announcing they were arresting their case after calling Michael Cohen because, in the opinion of this writer, they haven't proved their case well enough. This is a soft way of saying that they think that they might get this hung jury and that Trump will walk, which this woman is like, she's very concerned about it. And you can tell as she listens to the piece. So she talks about how he did a pretty good job. Cohen did a decent job for a convicted felon and disbarred lawyer. They're already hedging as a bad witness. Wasn't a bad witness. Actually did pretty well. Responded well to the prosecutor's warm-up. Confronted his prior acts. Had a steady stand. Didn't lose his cool when the defense cross-examined. Unfortunately, he admitted a piece of information related to that October phone call, which we talked about yesterday. And all of that kind of throws some shade on his testimony, right? They said the prosecution did a good job backing it up, bolstering all the facts. But the problem is, and this is something that she's ready to hone in on, they haven't gotten to the underlying crime, which is something you're hearing everybody talk about on the political right and very few on the political left. This is the first I've seen of it really on the left, where you say that his testimony has served to prove the elements of the other alleged crime, but not the actual crime that he's being charged for. Which is to say that he committed a campaign interference or made an illegal campaign contribution, falsified the business records. So they've made one argument about the campaign contributions, but they haven't proved that there was an actual falsification by Donald Trump specifically, that he had his hand in falsifying the 34 business records. That's supposedly the first degree count that he's being charged with. In other words, she's concerned they haven't actually proved the case. That has to be there. Now, this is the first sort of tacking towards the middle when you start realizing, yes, we're not going to win this. We don't want to be on the wrong side of this, like we didn't understand what was happening all along. And as usual, this started with the walls are caving in. Donald Trump is facing his, he's got his day in court, and now it's all going to crush down on him. And now we have to start pushing away from that. So you're seeing that there's a lot of troubleshooting, a lot of armchair quarterbacking going on. In this case, this woman thinks that Alan Weisselberg, the chief financial officer of Trump Organization, should actually be the person that they called in order to bolster their claims. But what's very interesting is that the prosecution addressed very early on, they didn't think that he could be honest, which is to say, they didn't think he would say what they wanted him to. They wanted him to say one thing specifically, and they felt like that wasn't going to be the case. Now, he's a guy that's currently serving time in Rikers Island for a perjury conviction stemming from the original fraud civil investigation that was going on. All of this stuff is ugly. It's really, really nasty stuff, and all it shows is they're throwing everything they can against the wall, like we heard from the Raging Cajun the other day. They're throwing spaghetti against the wall, and it's not sticking. So you've got to go with your number three. You got to pull in somebody from the bench, and you got to figure it out. They have a defense witness that's going right now. You're dealing with a courtroom where the judge, a partisan judge, is operating in bad faith, it seems like. And so then you get stories like this. This is the most balanced coverage you'll find of it. This is from CBS. I'm saying that sort of facetiously. The defense witness is expected to be back on the stand in the Trump trial after a heated exchange with the judge. The heated exchange is that under his breath, Robert Costello, who's the former attorney for Michael Cohen, who was the sort of star witness for the prosecution and not a very good witness. Now you've got the attorney for this guy basically discrediting every single thing that was said. And some of the things are quite impressive. He stated that Cohen had told him that he didn't know anything about it, that Trump didn't know anything about it, that he didn't, that he had plans to put the money up himself. So he's 100% discrediting what Cohen said. So all you have to do is say it's a he said, she said, or he said moment. And who is going to be the more believable? The convicted liar or the guy that was his attorney that's put on by the defense? Pretty interesting. Now, the judge is trying to weigh in and has been over and over again, quote unquote, castigating the behavior of the witness on the stand. Mostly what happens is apparently the prosecutors are throwing out objections to certain questions. And whenever the objections are sustained, he's been saying things under his breath, like geez, or strike that, or whatever. And he's basically been frustrated with the way the judge is handling the courtroom, and the judge gave him a tongue lashing over it because the judge needs to tell people. And apparently they had a stare down, and that caused the courtroom to be emptied, which is the big hubbub that you're hearing about, this heated exchange. The courtroom was emptied, and they gave him a talking to, of which the transcripts were later released. So why did we clear the courtroom? I guess they wanted to let the public know what was going on, but not the jury. All of this stuff from the outside looks like exactly what you want it to be. People on the political left are cheering. This judge is killing it. This judge is doing a great job. We're going to get justice. Finally, the powerful are held accountable. And people on the political right, and probably people who are in the independent and in the middle, just go like, good God already. Look how ridiculous this situation is. In any case, yet another example of it. And it's not going the way they want. Not even a little bit. So we got to do something else. We got to change the game. We have to bring out the favorite tactic of old, which is fear, And this particular fear is fear of Nazis. Classic American fear of Nazis. When in doubt, accuse your opponents of being that. And so we'll do that in 1 second. Before we do that, I want to just say, if you guys want to sponsor our program, this is not a Nazi brand. This is an all-American brand. MattHatJerky.com/Kyle. Again, the website is Matt with 2 T's, hat with 1 T, jerky.com/Kyle. So the story, and you can use promo code Kyle for checkout. You get 20% off. The story of the Matt Hat Jerky is pretty cute. He started at 11 years old with a little like red wagon that he was dragging around with bags of beef jerky that he had made from his grandfather's recipe. And by the time he's 18, which is how old he is right now, Matt, who was wearing a cowboy hat in it, which he thought, what's more cowboy than beef jerky? Matt Hat jerky.com, right? So he's out there and he now has up to 20 employees. They've got a full factory making this stuff. And my favorites are the USDA prime cuts. I like the black truffle. I like the roasted garlic. I like the original. Those are my favorites. If you like pepper, you like all the regular spice. If you like some of the other kind of exotic things like teriyaki, or if you're like Punjabi or whatever, there's some other kind of flavors, but I'm kind of like right down the middle. I'm an umami guy. Check out MattHatJerky.com/Kyle. Good story, good people, good product. That's why we recommend it here. All right, let's get into Nazis, because what's more fun than that? This is the big hubbub. It's on multiple different news sites. Apparently, and I went and watched the video because I went to True Social and looked for it. Apparently, Donald Trump is secretly unveiling his Nazi roots. That's what this story is all about. Trump social media posts video. So it's Trump. Did he post it, or did Trump's social media post it? It's actually just on his social media account, which we know other people probably have access to, and they can post campaign videos and they can do some reposts. This is a video that they posted that somebody made, like it's a fan video. It's 30 seconds long, 30 seconds. And at the end of it, the whole video is like AI generated, what they would call their video elements is what they're called, if my memory of the business serves. So video elements show you newspaper reel, and you can fill in the headline. So it's Trump wins in a landslide, MAGA, America's great again, what is going to happen next, Trump wins, what happens after that. So all this stuff is going on. And in the background, in the last 4 seconds of the video, from second 26 to second 30, it shows this very faded headline, which I will show you in one moment, that says now something about a unified Reich, which sounds AI generated, to be honest, but the Reich, obviously, is a reference to Nazis, because Donald Trump has finally tipped his hand that in a second Donald Trump presidency, that's what's coming. Nazi America, American fascism, which is the claim the left has been making all along. Now, whether Trump actually, whether the person who made this Trump video was actually a Trump fan, or whether it was a plant to try to get him to do that, that's also a possibility. We talked about how AI is going to be influencing things in the elections. Isn't it interesting that this just gave them a huge talking point to run on? The people that wrote about it, I saw it on CBS, I saw it on ABC, I saw it on CNN. So it is being picked up broadly. We've actually got a little clip of some of the breathless coverage talking about this. You guys will get a kick out of this. Trump is a Nazi. Here we go. Take one.
Donald Trump's Truth Social account on Monday shared a video about how they seem to think the United States will change if Trump is elected president again. There's, of course, nothing abnormal there necessarily. Political candidates talk about their visions for the country all the time. They're running for office. That's the point. What is not normal is that this video referenced a quote unquote unified Reich. Reich is a German word that basically means empire, but it, of course, evokes the Third Reich, used to refer to Adolf Hitler's Nazi Germany. We're going to show you that video. It's going to sound a little strange. We edited it to freeze and zoom in on the terms so that you can easily spot it. So you'll hear this video start, and then when the sound stops, you'll be able to see what we're talking about. Watch this.
What happens after Donald Trump wins? What's next for America?
So there you
So they just cut in right there. All right, I showed it on the screen so you guys can see it. It's so silly. Of course, they cut out all the audio. The audio is very generic and bland, and it's just it's like a rah-rah Trump type video. So there you go. In faded type, which we've blown up here for you on the screen, you can see a unified Reich. Now, she says it means empire. It also probably, apparently, most directly translates to something that means like realm, like people of the realm. And it was used before before the Nazis. It's not a specifically Nazi term. The Third Reich, obviously being the third one, there were other Reichs in arguments being made, Holy Roman Empire and some others. So the whole point of it is, if you've ever heard of the Reichstag fire, that's what the name of the building was, which was the unified realm where they had their parliamentary building. So anyway, this is a non-issue. This is nonsensical. But when you got nothing, that's what you got to run on. When you've got this problem going on, what is the issue that they were so shocked about? That Joe Biden is not gaining in the polls? Like, what do we got in our bag? We got throw this against it, Nazi. And again, I think they're shocked that they're not seeing the movement that they wanted from the court cases and from all the fear that is going to have to go. So we're going to have to go a couple different new routes, and they're going to go into the old bag of tricks for just the last 5 years, which have been at least previously successful. I think they underestimate the audience at this point. Anyway, we played this yesterday or the day before. Play for you one more time.
But despite it all, the state of the race remains stagnant. Biden continues to trail former President Trump in several key battleground states, down by double digits in Nevada and Georgia, states he won in 2020.
There it is. So Meet the Press telling you exactly why they've got to pull out all the stops and why we've got to go full accuse your opponent of being a Nazi. That video you saw was kind of funny. And that woman, I don't know that anchor's name, but she kind of gave me that kind of like Elizabeth Shue, kind of like a later in life kind of thing, Adventures in Babysitting, right? Something like that. Cocktail, something along those lines. I don't know what that hair is, but it feels like kind of a throwback thing. So this is the big scandal. If the big scandal is that somebody else made a video that, like I said, could have been a plant, that's the other possibility. We're living in a world where you see something, social media reclicks and reshares are so easy, and they don't necessarily mean that anything. They don't mean anything at all. You could just go, oh, my friend wrote an article, I will share it. Oh, my campaign team saw a video that looked good. Let's do that. This is that throw that stuff against the wall sort of mentality. In any case, the things that they're claiming in there actually all sound pretty good. The economy booming, the borders closed, World War II style news clipping is the way that CNN described them. What's next for America? Creation of a unified Reich. Honestly, wouldn't it be nice if we had kind of a unified Reich type attitude where we said America is America and we want to actually have it united in a common value system? The problem that we have right now is that our country has been divided to the point where people on the right love what America used to be, and people on the left hate what America is and could be, and they want something that has never existed in America. So that's not very unified. And I think it's exemplified by this viral video that I saw the other day. This has got some harsh language. So this is the kind of guy that I would want to have brought into the camp. Like, I can probably reason with this guy. He sounds like a lot of dudes from New Jersey or New York that are just angry. They're angry because they've bought into the fear porn. They've bought into this messaging that because you don't think exactly as he does, that you are a Christian nationalist, whatever. That's the only way that there's two teams, and the teams is us and them. The left is really big on the us and them right now. I always see these people in these videos. They'll go and they'll go to a Trump rally, right? And they'll go, I went to a Trump rally and it wasn't what I expected because people gave me hugs and they were really nice to me, even though I'm a black guy, or I'm like a Hispanic lady, and they were like high-fiving me. They're like, welcome to the team, like have a margarita with us or whatever. The people on the right tend to have that sort of attitude. I think people on the left and the middle also do, given the opportunity. But they've been basically told that it's us versus them, and that we are now in a zero-sum game. America has never been a zero-sum game. The whole point of Manifest Destiny is that the pie is enormous. We can spread across it, and we can always find more pieces of the pie. That's why you don't have to fight for scraps in New York. You can go out to Wyoming. Not that you should go to Wyoming. Don't screw up Wyoming for me, people. And especially for our Wyoming listeners. I know we got a couple. Don't screw up Wyoming. But the whole idea is that there's a lot of America, and America can be spread around. And as my buddy Steve Friend likes to say, America is a verb. You have to do America, which means you have to accomplish that sort of inclusive attitude, not say it and then discriminate with it. You do America by living out the values of America. Meanwhile, you got this guy, like I said, I think he's convertible. This anger is the opposite. It's the flip side of the coin of love. It's people that have not been embraced, that are looking for a reason to be accepted. You make this stupid video. This is an indictment of the guy, not the people with the flags. Like, who knows what those people with the flags are? They're just people who maybe like America and like the way it looks. Is there anything better? Yeah, I just saw it in the chat. Somebody just threw some American flags up. People the we. Clever. People the we just threw some waving American flags. Is there anything more heart swelling to an American than seeing the American flag flying in the breeze? And if it makes you mad, that's a you problem. Check this guy out. Like I said, harsh language, so tune out if you're at work.
I'm here enjoying a nice day at the beach with my kids. and I turn around. I got these flags planted here on the beach by these MAGA fucks. Listen, this is all America. We know. You didn't storm the beaches to stake out your territory on the beach. This isn't the fucking moon. I get it. This is America. But I'm sick of my flag being represented by white nationalist trash on a goddamn beach. Go fuck yourselves.
Like, really, dude? Did you go talk to him? Did you go find out who's flying that flag? Like, what do you know about them? Nothing. Anyway, that sentiment that the flag represents something that is not all of us, right? That's where we're at right now, where if you like this country, then you're already automatically associated with people on the right. There were people that voted Democrats that flew flags. Barack Obama was inaugurated under a Betsy Ross flag, was he not? You know, I've got one on the wall right here. And then afterwards, somehow we find out that that's going to be a symbol of domestic violent extremists, the so-called militia violent extremist types. That's a big divide. That's the divide that we're actually fighting against. And I don't think it's left and right. Like I said, I think it's so easily bridged. You bridge that with kindness, not weakness, by the way, but kindness. Like, hey, man, what are you really mad about? And if you were to go and Socratically dismantle that guy's anger about America, he's not angry about America. He just doesn't feel like he's being heard. He's got the same complaints about everything that you do. He's just picked a team, which is maybe the nicest thing about, like, I think even my dad was telling me he didn't have a lot of love for the Kansas City Chiefs. He's a former KC resident and got some stuff going on there in the background, but he really likes this guy. He likes this kicker. So you don't have to like the team. You just have to like that the message of truth rings through. That's kind of the idea between the mis, dis, and the malinformation. The thing that we want to keep spreading here is truth that's inconvenient to whatever narrative is being thrown out. And so that's why I'll tell you that Vivek made a poor choice in skipping out on a T-ball game. They literally made movies about this kind of stuff, right? The Home Alone crowd, same sort of thing. My whole generation was raised on the idea that dad skipping out on the most important ball game of your life for the first time you've ever done anything, like, that's the enemy. The enemy is, how do we get more America? How do we get more close to taking care of our family, faith, family, freedom, like my friends over at Catholic Vote to. We'll just throw them on the screen real quick. Faith, family, and freedom. Those were universal American values, political left, political right. They were not sitting on one partisan camp or the other. If you guys want to support the mission of Catholic Vote, you guys can do so. You can also follow them. You can do me a big favor. Click through the show notes. If you're watching on Rumble, there's a link to the Rumble channel where our videos are being posted over there. New podcast over there we do called Between the Lines, which we're going to be taping again today for later this week. It's a little more produced. It's a little bit more in the background. It's a little more of a social media kind of buzz-looking stuff. You guys will appreciate it if you follow them out there. You don't have to be Catholic in name. You don't have to be Roman Catholic and go to Mass like I do in order to follow them, because the messaging, like I said, it's the same team. And we've actually got a review that's coming that's going to talk about that as well, I think. At Catholic Vote is the social media handle. If you're following them on YouTube or anything else, you can follow them on Facebook and all that kind of stuff for all of you that are involved in that. But yeah, it's a universal thing. We're supposed to be all be on the same team. So that's how you get this being offensive to people. And again, you got to get really, really magnified in there. MAGA is the big piece, the bottom piece down there. Slowly, the unified Reich, which I don't actually think is a terrible goal. You want to talk about things that are scary? You want to bring out Donald Trump as a Nazi? How about actual Nazi-type behavior? Can we talk about some actual Nazi-type behavior? This is coming from Zero Hedge, which is a really fun website. They've got a lot of interesting things. They cover stories that not everybody will cover, and they're always attributed to Tyler Durden. But in the case of this one, it actually comes from the Epoch Times. It's a reprint by someone called Kristen Lang. This story is much closer to Nazi behavior to me, which is to say the state did something wrong, notably wrong, but it was for the greater good. It was for the fatherland, and so we're not going to do anything about it. As we near the end of the school year, a new court ruling may have some parents rethinking about whether they want to enroll their children in California public schools this fall. First of all, if you listen to this program and you live in California and you send your kids to public school, what are you doing? You know, here's another example. For those of you living in Southern California, you will likely remember the case of Aiden. I'm going to mess up this last name, but it looks like Peliki, an academically gifted Yorba Linda High School student, captain of the track team. He was forced to take his exams outside in 40-degree weather wearing only a t-shirt. You know what? There's a picture of this kid on the screen that I can see, and a picture that the family has provided, I guess, for this article. He looks like he's going to be okay. He survived sitting outside. 40-degree weather in a t-shirt is a bummer, but having done it a lot in the military with guys about his age, yeah, they'll survive. The interesting thing is that they singled him out because he was wearing a formerly acceptable face mask, which was made out of mesh, to school during the COVID era. He said that some of the teachers encouraged his fellow students to ridicule him for not conforming to the mid-year change in the masking policy. He was hauled in front of the principal's office, removed from campus, ultimately forced into a home-based study program against his own wishes. The family sued the Yorba Linda School District in March of 2022, arguing that the school board members colluded to change the masking policy mid-year to punish quote-unquote conservative students or students whose parents were vocal in opposing various COVID measures in the school. What's interesting to me is that opposing sort of government mandates getting pushed down on you should have been a liberal position. That should have been a position of the political left as well, saying individual liberties and personal freedoms were more important. As we have said here many, many times, the ACLU used to defend the rights of people who spoke things that were inconvenient, because if you defend inconvenient speech, which is the goal of the First Amendment, you never know when your speech is going to be inconvenient. It's a forward-looking attitude. It's a second-order and third-order consequence saying, hey, you know what? What I'm saying is out of fashion right now, or maybe what I'm saying is in fashion, but one day it may be out of fashion. And if I don't defend all speech, then we're going to have to worry about my speech at some point when the winds shift. If you are comfortable with outlawing so-called hate speech, then you have to have this definition of hate speech that's not malleable. But of course it's malleable because it's based on feelings and it's not based on anything factual. It's very dangerous to have this sort of thinking. But of course, California is not afraid to lean into things that are stupid, dangerous, or anything that allows them to gather more power. So after 2 years of litigation, an Orange County Superior Court judge, who had been previously ruling in favor of the family and against the dismissal, suddenly reversed course and ruled that the school officials were immune from liability under what they were calling, I think, legislative immunity, because even though they abused the students and that they admitted that they were actually illegal in the actions they took during the COVID era, and it was a dangerous precedent, basically, they have legislative immunity because they were enforcing public health orders. And so this is the argument for the greater good. This is why the political right and people that are conservative more generally need to be very cautious about what is called operational morality. Operational morality is that no matter what I do, as long as the operation serves my end goal, and it's very commonly referred to as the ends justify the means, if I can get to the place that I want to be, then it doesn't matter how I did it. The problem that is made throughout literature and all of human history is that when you use tactics that are not commensurate with your values, you end up becoming more like the tactics. You end up becoming more like the enemy than you do solving the problem. You may temporarily win the problem, but you are actually losing the greater war, if that makes any sense. And this is played out in many instances of literature. That's why, interestingly enough, the FBI director always says they do the right thing in the right way at the right time for the right reasons. If you do the things correctly, then you never can be questioned. You never have to go back and look into your own house and say, where is the rot or the weakness in my argument or in the people that I associate with? This is my problem with people like Laura Loomer and James O'Keefe and some of the others that I have kind of engaged with in little tussles. The problem is they don't do things in the right way. And if you choose lazy or easy shortcuts, then you are engaging in tactics, just like the smear tactics we're seeing over at CNN, that you are now going to have your motives called into question later. And it will undermine the work that you've done previously. This is the real issue. And if you're going to ride on the back of really bad ideas, then you're going to be also subject to being judged by having those sort of ideas. This is my contention. This is why I'm not a Republican. And it's why I'm not a capital C conservative. I'm a lowercase c. I believe in conservative principles, which is to say I want to conserve certain things. And if we're not answering to ourselves this question, what is it that you are conserving? If you're simply on team fill in the blank, then you are part of the problem, it turns out. And you end up just like that guy talking about quote unquote MAGA fucks on the beach. And you're mad at the American flag. You're mad at the freaking American flag. Why are you mad at that? It leaves you in a tribal attitude as opposed to a values-based. And American conservatives, and specifically independent conservatives, have always been the people that are trying to hold that weird ground, which is saying we have religious beliefs, but they're not part of the political world, right? They don't have to be, but they should, in fact, dictate the way that we engage the political environment. And sometimes we're the, flipping the tables of the money changers inside the temple. And sometimes we're the person turning the other cheek. And there are some prudent decisions that have to be made during that. But as long as you are operating on the same set of values, then you actually have some standing to be able to talk. And you will always find yourself on the right side of things. If you are simply going because my team is doing this, you're going to find yourself in that tricky space. And we're going to talk about vaccine hesitancy in a second, because this is one of the major weaknesses that I think Donald Trump has to shore up. It's very easy for him to fix this, by the way, and I highly recommend he does it. All he's got to do is say, I was given some advice. I tried to stand with the people that are supposed to be experts, and just like you, I also am susceptible to believing in experts that have bad intent. If he did this, the vaccine piece that is going to be, RFK's only real strength against Donald Trump, it's gone. And I think RFK actually pulls more from Biden than not. But if you watched Bongino's argument yesterday, one of the things he says, he thinks they're setting up Joe Biden to be removed. I don't know if it's true or not. I actually don't know. It's very possible. And if it was, I had the same instinct. It would be an RFK. RFK already has a base of support. He's the most likely person. And he has the one thing that people that maybe are not conservative, but definitely have some real questions about institutions based on what happened in 2020 and 21. The only thing that I think RFK is able to pull from is vaccine stuff. And since we're talking about that, that is where the next threat that they want to do, this sort of fear porn, is going to go. Okay. Public health has proven to be a fairly capable weapon system to use because it still has this legitimacy. It still has a fear piece. And just like you're seeing, judges are not likely to be the person who ruled on the wrong side of an epidemic. They don't want to be on the wrong side of public health because that, especially elected judges, those people are very worried about the public sentiment. And if you did something, like I've lost friends over it, and you have too, most likely. I've had people reach out to me that were friends of mine that said, if you're not getting the shot, you're directly like the people who are going to kill my mom, who's sick and immune compromised. There's plenty of people that will side with safety over dangerous freedom. I'm a dangerous freedom kind of guy, and I hope that you are too. I encourage it. If you're not, get yourself on that track because it's actually where it's at. That means you take on personal responsibility, and that means some of the danger that comes with it. But there's a lot of people that don't want to do that. It's not an American position, by the way. America is dangerous. America is Western. Our oldest throwback, like right now at this point, is looking back. It doesn't matter whether you're looking at Gangs of New York type fiction or you're looking at things like, our Western sort of, it's been exported across the world. Everybody wants to be a Western American cowboy because that's a rugged, reliable, someone who embraces danger and takes on and makes safety out of not safety, engages in nature and also, bad people and also unknown Indians, the alien types that are, you can't speak the language, you don't know what they're doing. All of this stuff is a very American idea. And so in any case, if you want to kind of undermine that, you do it with public safety because everybody wants to be on the right side of that. And here is CNN just starting to dip their toe in. We know it's coming. The fear porn, the amygdala porn, where you stop thinking rationally and you start thinking based on what is going to keep me alive. This is where you end up.
Just off the top, it's important to say that so far there's only been one confirmed human case. Right now, we're only seeing it in animals. But the fact that it's spreading, from birds to mammals so far and so fast, what do you make of what you're seeing?
Yeah, so the big picture is that we are having globally the equivalent of an animal pandemic, primarily in birds, that has crossed over into mammals. Some of those mammals are wildlife, elephant seals, sea lions. What we've seen over the last month or so in dairy cows is concerning at two levels. Number one, it's concerning because this virus has shown an extraordinary ability to move into new species. It's also concerning from a food security perspective. The virus in cows doesn't kill cows, but it does reduce milk production. And anytime we are infecting animals that produce an important source of protein around the globe, that's a really important concern.
It's a really important concern, people. It's very concerning because it doesn't kill cows, so you're not going to die, but you're going to have less milk production from cows. So there's that. They addressed the question of raw milk in there, which is kind of interesting. The best is this. They use the same technique that you'd use as a prosecutor that's trying to insulate a crappy witness. Let's say a la Michael Cohen. You bring up all the weaknesses of the witness up front, and then you go and you make your arguments. This anchor for CNN did that. He was like, now, in all fairness, only one person has died from this. But aren't you really, really scared? And he was like, oh, I'm totally scared. I'm totally scared because the dairy cows are going to put out less milk. Pretty funny, pretty interesting. There's an piece that follows up with this little, so this was a video clip that came from late night. If you saw, it was 1 a.m. in Davis, California. It was the early morning show in CNN. It's like before 5 a.m. It was 4:45 is when they were actually airing that. So not the high visibility time that they're running that particular interview from what I could tell. Why they had a guy from UC Davis who's talking at 1:44 a.m. is beyond me. And why that professor is out doing interviews at 2 a.m. is beyond me as well. Having done plenty of interviews on network television, that does not sound like something I would agree to. For whatever, I mean, that's his only 2 minutes of fame, I guess. When you're an associate professor of veterinary medicine, that's how it works. And that's who that guy was. He's an associate professor at UC Davis. All right. So long and short of it is they have this piece. It's an opinion piece. It's put out and you're seeing it on the screen right now. How to prepare for our latest viral threat. Well, is it really a threat? And the two people that they have here, this is actually borderline amazing. One person is a guy named Brian C. Kostrowski. He's an epidemiologist and he's a public health practitioner. He's the president of the Beaumont Foundation, or the De Beaumont Foundation. And the other is Frank Lutz, who they describe as a Republican pollster and a communication advisor. Everybody knows that he is a fantastic friend of Kevin McCarthy. If you follow Republican politics at all, not one of my favorite people, Frank Lutz, kind of like not a very healthy dude, not a guy that I want to get my public health information for. And just so you know what kind of group we're talking about here in this particular opinion piece, the De Beaumont Foundation looks like this when they tell you what's new. So I'm going to just read a couple of these things off the screen, but I just snapshotted this from their main page, their homepage, how to improve public health work, the workforce mental health. We have to look upstream, responding to misinformation with infodemiology. Very clever of them, but they're worried about misinformation. What does that remind you of? Things like making diversity, equity, and inclusion a habit and mindset in public health work. So you can tell that when you have in your 4 articles on the top and 4 below, so 8 total articles that they have put out there about like what's going on and what's new, making diversity, equity, inclusion a habit and a mindset is right up there. They also want to talk about 10 years of public health wins, reflections, and new directions. It's all females in the pictures. In fact, every single person depicted in this are females. They've also got an article about Made for Health Justice. I'm just giving you a taste of who we're talking about when we say that this is the article they're talking about. And their concern, as we pointed out the other day, is the H5N1 avian influenza virus strain. Now, how many times have we faced down bird flus? The birds are always getting pandemics, apparently, and they're always getting some variety of this, HXN1 variation avian flu. And this has been going on since Obama. So I'm not interested in it. What I am interested in is novel information. And if there is anything to be really concerned about. I read this article. I couldn't find anything on there. As we mentioned, only one person has died, and you never know what sort of comorbidities are playing in. How many of us have now taken death counts at a much different rate, and we evaluate them very differently based on what we saw the public health or the health industry get involved in 2020? I certainly have. This article also hyperlinks to this, what went wrong during the U.S. pandemic response, what went right. They're showing this heroic public health worker hugging somebody, who looks like he's old and dying. And isn't it very interesting that it's a public health worker and not a family member? Remember, we didn't choose that. That wasn't our choice. These people ordained themselves with certain things, certain powers, and then they put on plastic. That's just ISO garb. There's nothing like particularly virus isolating on that. That's meant to just shed the clothing so you don't transmit it from room to room. If you're watching on the screen, you're seeing a guy wearing a blue gown, which is usually ISO protocol. Usually in the hospitals I worked in, it was yellow. That was to know that it was potentially infectious, and you would don it as you went into the room, and you would doff it, take it off, and throw it all away. The only people that were making this happen were the people that are actually in the picture. It's like the healthcare workers were the ones who brought this stuff on. Many of us lost our faith in these institutions, and I don't believe anything that they write based on the way that they write them because I think it's fundamentally dishonest. We lost our trust in institutions. We can no longer take these people credibly, and the people we can't take credibly, who are they? the news media, who are trying to hype things about, Nazi Trump, and they're trying to get on the right side of this news coverage now that they're losing. They also are trying to get out here and make sure that you are going to be compliant with the only thing they think might be in there is that fear of death. And as one of you accurately just stated in the chat, SR711 said, godless people are the ones that have this big fear of death. I don't know that I've ever sat and been afraid of dying. I can't remember ever being afraid of it. I have heard that people in my family members of mine, siblings, that it wakes them up in a cold sweat, that it makes them fearful all the time. I can't fathom doing that. I'm too busy trying to raise kids and have a job like many of you. My thought is not based on what will happen in the future that I can't control. So what can I control? I can control things like getting good information. And here's something that's really fun. Is this good? Is this good information coming from CBS, from their Health Watch piece? This is called 4 Ways Vaccine Skeptics Mislead You on the Measles and More. So the best is when you write an article that you can show the receipts, right? You want to put the hyperlinks to what it is you're talking about. Measles is on the rise in the United States, is the claim. So far this year, the number of cases is about 17 times what it was on average during the same periods in each of the 4 years before. So saith the CDC. Half the people infected, mainly children, have been hospitalized. Well, 17x sounds like an awful lot of people. I am highly fearful of such things. I don't want to get the measles, and I don't want you to have a 17x risk of measles either. So how many measles cases are we talking about? How many are there? Oh, it's 125 cases. 125 people. The number of, that's not no one. And 50% of them ended up in the hospital. Notice they didn't say anybody died. 125 people equals a headline story of 17x measles risk. Amazingly, I'm going to keep reading some of this stuff. It's going to get much worse. They just tell you. They just tell you it's going to get worse. How do they know it's going to get worse? It's going to get worse because they said so, because a large number of parents are deciding not to get their kids vaccinated against measles, as well as diseases like polio and pertussis. Unvaccinated people whose immune system or immune status is unknown account for 80% of the measles cases this year. Many parents have been influenced by a flood of misinformation. There's that word again. Lefty stuff spouted by politicians and podcast hosts. Oh, I hope yours truly is part of that. Influential figures on television and social media. These personalities repeat decades-old notions that erode confidence in the established science backing childhood vaccines. Is it really that established? Aren't we all asking some of these questions at this point? Like I said, it is one of the strongest points that RFK is able to run on. A very, 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 very small number of people have gotten the measles, and they're making some wild claims. So are childhood vaccines the issue? Are they, is there something that they've lost? They've lost ground because they're not talking in an honest way. They're not doing things in an honest operation where they're saying this is both sides of the coin, make a good decision. They're advocating for a position that doesn't seem to be fair. And I've got Peter McCullough, a little clip here that I think is very eye-opening. And all this information that's been coming out in the last 4 or 5 years is only what should have always been there, which is that we're allowed to have questions about the things that we put inside of our body. We are allowed to have questions about the capabilities and the knowledge base of our doctors. And why are more people not previously talking about this? It turns out that the anti-immunity crowd, we're always talking about it. I'm also going to tell you why it's not parents not getting their kids vaccinated in the first world that are really the problem. Here we go.
Autism was 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. It's now 1 in 36. It's the biggest epidemic of childhood in U.S. history. Autism is on fire right now. Sure, we have greater screening and detection, but there is a massive bona fide increase. What we know is it appears to be associated with the expanding childhood vaccine schedule up on the left. When I was a kid, you can see that there was 3 shots, 1960. Now a child today faces 108 shots. At one of the visits between age 1 and 2, there's 13 shots administered altogether in children. And it's been well demonstrated that if a child gets sick with a big round of shots and they have a seizure, there's about a 40% chance that the brain is injured and they develop autism.
That is a massive, massive increase. I also appreciate that Peter McCullough, who has been, roundly hated by the political left, he takes on both sides. It's like, yes, there's better screening. We have a better capability. We understand autism as a spectrum. And we look at things much more broadly. So that's going to account for some of that increase, but not enough of it to go from 1 in 10,000 to 1 in 36. That's an incredible, incredible rate of increase. And it's also an incredible increase to go from 3, 5, 6 shots, whatever it was, 1960s, 1980s when I was a kid. Sometime after 1985 is what it's been pinned on. And this was under the Reagan era. We've always got to call out where things happen. The Reagan era was not good for the vaccine schedule, and it wasn't good for machine guns. So 2 things that matter a lot to me: children's health and also firearms ownership. These things seem like not great. So nobody is perfect. So just remember, none of our politicians are beyond criticism, nor should they be. We got to talk about things in an honest way, somewhere down the middle, with facts from the left and the right, so that we can actually have this discussion. The thing that was so eye-opening to me that I'd always heard the sort of the idea like, oh, there's mercury, there's heavy metals. You hear about that all the time, and it gets debunked, quote unquote. I'm going to put debunked in air quotes here as well. It gets debunked when you're talking about what goes on in the way that it clears the bloodstream. And RFK explained it in a way that I'd never looked at. I'd never thought about it before, but it makes perfect sense to me. I haven't validated any of this stuff, so this is unvalidated information from listening to somebody and understanding how some of the absorption and uptake works in our body. Essentially, the claim is that all the mercury that is used, or the pre-products of mercury that get moved through the second pass metabolism, the first pass and second pass, changes it into a heavy metal, or reconstitutes it in a way that it's supposed to be evacuating through urine. That's what the expectation is. But in fact, in a whole number group of people, it actually passes the blood-brain barrier, and it sits into the fatty tissues and the actual the linings for our neurons, and so you can actually deposit in the brain. And depending on the density of it, that can change things dramatically. And that obviously is where you would get a neurological reaction. He's talking about seizures and so on, and permanent brain damage. That can be all number of reasons that cause that. Anyway, it's triggering responses. And we say, well, it's not in the blood. That's first order level thinking. Just saying that we gave you a shot and it had some stuff in it, and that stuff is no longer in your bloodstream, doesn't mean that it didn't get absorbed somewhere else and taken out of it. And I think that's the argument about the spike proteins that we've had. We've had a lot of questions that have come up, and simply because the left overplayed a hand, the public health community overplayed their importance, and now we have to ask certain questions. Now, the real thing that came in, this was another cool little hyperlink. Not only were there only 125 cases of measles, the people that they were talking about and the doctor that's advocating there, that's saying some of the strong statements about how it's all the unvaccinated doing the ugly things in this country, they also wrote this paper. Public health actions to control measles among Afghan evacuees during Operation Allied Welcome, United States, September to November 2021. During that time, September to November 2021, I got to deal with some of these Afghans, and they didn't have any information on them. We have absolutely no idea where these people came from. Forget about the illegals that are running across the border for a moment. The Biden administration, in the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan, pulled in like 100,000 people from a third world shithole. There's no other way to say it. Came in from to the point where these people had never seen toilets. And if that's shocking to you, you've never walked around on a base with these people. Now, those of you who've been deployed overseas, you already know what I'm talking about. But I'm saying they brought that attitude to America. They imported it with no discussion of what the rules were, with no requirements for public health. They didn't screen these people. They just brought them in and dumped them on an Air Force base or an Army base in all kinds of places. I watched people, what they called the Cadillac trailers, which are these these toilet and shower facilities that were on the side of the Afghan camps. They'd bring people in and people just walk into the shower. And one of the guys I actually did an interview for, it was actually a fairly important interview because we were interviewing this kid talking about the alleged black soldier. And I say alleged because all the facts in that case didn't line up properly. But there was allegedly a black female soldier who was sexually assaulted in the dark at Fort Bliss in 2021. Some of you guys know what I'm talking about. I've already reported to my member of Congress what was going on with that and what I believe was actually happening. In any case, the wild thing is that this kid was like, I'm really embarrassed. He said, I'm from the city. I'm a computer programmer. I work for the State Department. I actually had an American security clearance, and I was working on projects for the U.S. government. I am familiar with civilization, but my country people are not. And many of them walk into the showers and simply stand there under the water and just poop because there's a drain on the floor. And so the showers are constantly covered in human feces. This is the kind of place that we were. These people were also just walking off into the desert on either side of the road. My buddy, who's a Green Beret, who was my partner, we were driving on the road, and he was like, dude, this smells like every third world shithole I've ever been into. People just crapping on the ground, uncovered. They don't even cover it up or dig a little cat hole. So those people were bringing in public health emergencies, and 100% of that can be tied right into Biden. Or they can blame it on you, the unvaccinated, the vaccine hesitant, the people that are looking like, I'd like to see a little bit more information right now, and I've got some questions because you guys overplayed your hand. The fear porn that is being played in the media wants to blame people who are quote unquote conservatives, the unmasked wearers in California, in favor of public health, when in fact, it can be very easily pinned on very bad policies by this administration, which have been overwhelming. I'm going to wrap up with one thought for you guys. And before we do, let me just pivot over. Where's the MyPillow? There it is. MyPillow.com/Kyle. If you guys want to support the program, you guys can get your own products from MyPillow and Mike Lindell. We're going to be saying a name that is very similar to Lindell. It's Littell. But MyPillow.com/Kyle, promo code Kyle, Kyle. Same discounts anybody else would give you. We're starting to use some of their products. I'm using their towels today, and I'm a fan. They work. Look, towels only got to get water off me and not be too damn soft, so it doesn't make my skin crawl like peach fuzz. And that accomplishes the mission. MyPillow.com/Kyle is where you guys can do that. We catch a cut of every sale, so we thank you guys. Make sure you let them know that we sent you over there with the promo code KYLE. Can we pivot over on some of the consequences of this stuff? I told you we were going to be talking about a guy named Dr. John Littell, very similar sounding to Lindell, a family physician. He leads a coalition of the Amendment 4 in Florida, responding to the state banning abortion, less popular among students applying for medical residency. There's a report. This is coming from Catholic Vote. So if you got the loop today, you already saw this. Report indicates med school graduates are more interested in residencies in states without abortion ban. It's not surprising at all, says this Catholic doctor. What's going on here, though? I want to always look at the underlying causes. There's been a reduction in applicants for residencies. That's the training after you get your MD, but before you go out and practice, as you learn to do whatever your specialization is. There's an application reduction for residencies in states with abortion bans. The states that had no abortion restrictions or had restrictions that were based on gestational age, as of April 1st, 2024, received more applications than states where abortion is fully banned or that it is more and more restrictive. So why would that be? Why would young doctors who swore an oath of do no harm, why would they be interested in states that allow more and more abortions? There's probably two factors to this. It's really important, but it goes far upstream, and that's what we have to be looking at. There are second and third order consequences of woke ideology in these schools. The woke ideology is not only are these students coming out formed with ideas and they're choosing their residencies based on abortion of all things, but they're also being selected based on this. We are selecting people to go into these medical programs, we being the academic, sort of institutions that Americans support wholesale through federal dollars. These areas are being supported by a curriculum, and they are selecting based on criteria that pick students who are more susceptible to doing exactly what it is. It goes all the way up the line, which is why I would say conservatives have to be pushing back into academia as well. You can get your kids smart enough in homeschooling. You can get them indoctrinated with the ideas that have been true for 2,000 years or more. You can give them Western values, and then you can send them into the world where they are actually a force for change. Or you can send the empty and the moldable minds into schools, allow them to be crafted by whatever the government school says. You can send them on to more government-funded, woke ideology-pushing, garbage academia where they're trying to put, DEI into math classes and physics. And then same thing in things like hard sciences. And you have to say that medicine should be a hard science. It shouldn't be based on opinion. It should be based on evidence. You're going to get more and more people that are picking these bad ideas. And the last one is that doctors in general are dealing with such a litigious society that less restrictions is better. Nobody wants to go where there's going to be a headache. Nobody wants to go where you're going to be facing legal cases for trying to do your job. And so maybe there is that sort of fake information or false information that says if you're doing something correctly in the right way that you're going to be liable in any case. It's worth noting that you are seeing less and less. We're going to see a kind of a niche market develop for doctors that have principles. And the key for us is to actually seek them out. My wife and I were going through a baby book, some of the stuff that happened when our son was born. He was born in early 2021. And during that time, we went to a pediatrician who was a lovely lady. I liked her very much. She had a brother that was a law enforcement officer, so she sort of got it. She never asked the dumb questions like, hey, are there any guns in the house? It was assumed and known, and we didn't have to do that sort of dance where I made them uncomfortable or hurt some nurse's feelings by telling them there's a gun in your office. Forget the fact that there's a gun in my house. Like, that's my favorite, by the way. But we didn't have that. But what we did see is that there were two things that were really, really wild about that time. Number one, when my son was delivered, I had a backpack on and I carried it at all times because I had this horrible feeling. And I don't know how many of you guys felt this, and maybe this was totally illogical, and I'll just admit to it right now. It may have been completely illogical, but I had a folding stock AR-15 in my backpack when I went into that hospital because the odds of someone losing their mind and coming in and doing something dangerous in Inova Fairfax Hospital in Northern Virginia seemed very high. And the other thing that seemed really possible was that they might try to keep our baby, because we weren't going to get him like a bunch of shots, or we weren't going to do things, or we weren't going to hang out in the hospital with them. So I had my issued weapons with me in a bag, and I carry them, and they're in the picture. And I look at it and I go like, oh man, what a weird time that was. And the second thing I saw was that we had our pediatrician, all the kids in there, and she's wearing a mask. And she said, it must be so weird for your kids to meet somebody because they've never met like a person outside of their family. Like, they're so young, they don't even remember meeting people. It's like, what the hell are you talking about? We lived our life the way that we always would. We made our kids live like kids. But the number of people that shut down and like didn't take their kids into a store until they were 2 or 3 years old, we have family members that didn't do that. They like kept their kids isolated, and they're dealing with real world consequences. So forget the idea that we're worried about like the vaccine schedule and all this stuff. Just the social implications of trying to make public health, protecting the oldest and the weakest. Our society should be protecting them, but you take on some risks by being American, and we should go back to some of that. And that means that you can't live in fear porn. You can't let the fear porn come to you at all. You have to just dismiss it immediately. The things that are meant to scare you, you have to recognize what they are. That's part of what we do here. It may be not convenient to a government narrative, but this is all specifically designed, especially when you get down to the raw numbers of it. Are you scared of the measles with 125 people in this country? Like, more people die falling downstairs than have been hospitalized by the measles. Hospitalized, not died. The number of people, one person died with this weird flu. 800 people get beaten to death in this country every year, give or take. Like what they call personal weapons, hands and feet. So how many of you walk around in fear of being beaten to death? Almost nobody that I'm aware of is walking in that. So do not give in to the amygdala. Do not give in to the fear porn. Use rationality, use your God-given sense of reason, and use basic understandings of statistics to know. As we talked about previously last week, we talked about the lies, the damned lies or the diabolical lies, and statistics. They are used to con you into things that don't make any bit of sense the minute that you can understand how math actually works. And 125 people out of 350 million people is essentially none. It's people. Like, don't get me, every life matters. But statistically, across the population, it does not matter at all. That's what we got for today, folks. I do have something that I think will be a little bit fun for you. This is our palate cleanser. Let me first read our 5-star review. I'm going to make an appeal. If you haven't done the 5-star review before, we have been stuck in the 950s on Apple, and I believe that they're censoring us. I believe that they're suppressing the number. We want to break the 1,000. It should be doable. There's plenty of you out here listening every single day, and it shouldn't be very hard. If you've already given us a review, you can do it again. Click and make sure that goes. We actually got 4 new reviews last night that I looked at, and we went down from 958 to 957. So you tell me how that happens. They're getting rid of these things. So I want you guys to try to overwhelm the system if you would. We want to do a test. Please leave us a 5-star review. You could do one like this one. You don't have to agree with everything I said. And this is from David D 7963, who does not, coming from February. He says, why? He still gave us the 5 stars, so I'll take it. But he says this: I like much of what you say, but I can't share it on Facebook or X because of your language. You are talking to so many people. It surprises me how flippant you are with your vocabulary, especially since you claim to be living a life of disciplined faith. Scripture warns us that every idle word will be accounted for and not to let any corrupt communication come from our mouths. I'll take you right at your value. I'll take the 5-star. And on top of that, David, do not think that I am saying it flippantly. When I swear, I do so intentionally. Maybe that makes it worse, but it is absolutely intentional. And I only swear occasionally because I'm a 42-year-old guy who worked in law enforcement, who worked around the military, and who worked in an emergency room. If you thought that I thought anything other than what I said, I will be presenting to you that this is clearly how I speak. And I unfortunately actually speak like this in front of my kids sometimes, which is my weakest thing that I do as a parent. So in any case, the chat is now going off with the F word. Let it go, guys. I'm just telling you, I will read your 5-star review. If you have a thought, I will share it. And I understand that all opinions can be your opinion. We don't have to agree on everything. Here is a palate cleanser. I want to give it to you. This is great. Speaking of values and bringing back homemaking, bring back mom musicians on kid instruments. This stuff is fantastic, so make sure you don't miss this. And if you didn't see it, it's worth coming and visually seeing what she's doing here on the video show. Here we go.
Spilling from my sippy cup, old McDonald farms horses. Toddlers rage like rude bosses. Old McDonald farms horses. Toddlers rage like rude bosses. I'll be throwing a tantrum. Kicking, screaming, demanding. I'ma bite on your ankle. About to climb on the table. I'ma rip off his diaper. Cause the toddler's a fire. And if you try to pacify, I'll dump in my pants, leaving you in strife. And if you try to pacify, I'll dump in my pants, leaving you in strife. Heck no, I won't do what you tell me. Heck no, I won't do what you tell me. Heck no, I won't do what you tell me. Heck no, I won't do what you tell me. Love my mother suckers. Spilling from my sippy cup. Old McDonald.
So good. She's really good, by the way. That's Big Merla over on Instagram. I've been trying to engage a little bit on Instagram, at least see what's going on out there. There's some really, really funny stuff. Make sure you guys have given us a like on this video. We really appreciate it. Make sure you have followed and subscribed if you want to be notified when we go live. We go live at 09:30 every single weekday, even when it is a holiday. So come on, do that. That'll be coming up on Monday. We'll still do a show. Patriot Coolers, Catholic Vote, Mad Hat Jerky, My Pillow, and you guys can always go to the Suspendables merch store at the-suspendables.com. Promo code Kyle across the board. Leave us questions, comments, and sarcastic remarks on KyleSeraphin.com. That's it for the show today, folks. We really appreciate all of you. You guys make the show work. We appreciate you being in the chat, and I will see you again tomorrow. God bless you. See you then.
Thanks for listening to The Kyle Seraphin Show, streamed live weekdays on rumble.com/Kyle Seraphin. Follow Kyle on Twitter, Truth Social, and Instagram at Kyle Seraphin.